How come? Are you nervous?
Okay, welcome everyone to chapter 60. And Virginia is leading today, so take it away.
Welcome again, everyone. I had a difficult time with this chapter. We were chatting about this before. So I have questions that I was not able to answer for myself, but they stood out to me. The wording stood out to me, so I have put them in here. I'm hoping that we can, together, different perspectives, be able to have a better understanding of what this chapter is really meaning and what it's trying to teach us. So in the first one, if we'll get right into it, page 133, the chapter begins with Aphraar immensely appreciating and enjoying his surroundings. And he lays his head down and is dreaming when Rael arouses him, but Aphraar would prefer to remain in his restful dreaming state. I have no doubt that you do. Sleep is for children of the night, we who are of the day must be up and doing. That statement, I don't quite understand what the children of the night, and as far as what being of the day, what does that mean to you? Do you understand this? Do you understand what this means?
That was a great question. Sorry, I was supposed to raise my hand. Well, sorry.
Okay, Lisa.
I'm a little out of it because I was trying to pull it up at the same time. Here I am. Yeah, I thought that was a great question, really perceptive. I interpreted children of the night to be people who are in a darker soul condition that need a place of teaching. Now, I don't know if that means people who are still in physical bodies that need sleep, but I interpreted it almost as a darker soul condition. And these people, Aphraar and the people he's with, are of the day because they're already in a soul condition where they don't require sleep anymore. They've parted with sleep long ago. I guess it was second or third sphere. So that was the way I was interpreting it. Curious if other people saw it differently.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I didn't actually think of it that way. And it's that was very good. Thank you very much. Michaela.
I kind of saw it as like before at-one-ment and after at-one-ment. Or, I mean, similar to Lisa, but maybe a bit further along in the scheme of growth, but just not yet being fully aligned with God. That was how I kind of perceived it. I'm not sure why I did that. I just got the sense of with the sleep, it's people that are still attached to the earth and are still not fully aligning themselves with God's way.
Oh, okay. So those that are earthbound spirits, you mean?
Or even just natural love spirits. I felt that they're still kind of in that sense of sleep. They're not fully aligning themselves with the infinite.
Oh, so the difference then between the natural love path and the divine love path?
Well, yeah, almost. That was how I kind of perceived it, that it's around about the seventh sphere that you would start to be classified as of the day rather than of the night.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah, that was just the feeling I got. I don't know if that's right at all.
No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for speaking on that. Alicia.
Well, now I'm questioning what I thought. Yeah, I think that could be true too. I agree with Lisa, and I actually felt that not only could it be people in the spirit world who are of a darker condition, but I thought maybe it's us on earth too. But it's also referring to that. I don't know. That's what I felt as a part of it. And obviously there are people in this who first go to the spirit world who need to rest. because of their condition. They're not necessarily in a hugely dark place, but they have some rest period. Maybe it's them too.
Right, right. Oh, thank
I'm-
you. I had thought that it was something to do with the sleep state as well. And that where some of us are only learning in your spirit body during that time, but you're still earthbound. So it kind of ties in with what you're saying, but I couldn't really figure it out. I was having a hard time with that, but I thought that's what it did for me. But I like this thought of it being the natural love path and the divine love path. Michaela?
Just to add to that, like I kind of thought it's sort of the intellect versus the heart as well, was kind of where I thought which is why I kind of thought natural love versus divine love.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And this sense of kind of fantasizing about what is to be versus actually doing it and embodying it and being it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does make sense, actually, because Aphraar is in that state where he is willing to take action to improve his soul condition.
And when he gets roused, he's kind of almost in that fantasy world rather than being in his body and experiencing the next step. And that's when he says, you're not a children of the night, you're a child of the day now, you know?
Oh. So that is key, I think. I like what you just said. Yeah, I think that really changes my perspective actually on this for me. That I felt like it had something to do with the sleep state, but I just couldn't understand quite on a deeper level what it meant. But that makes sense. That yeah. That's why I like to dream.
I like to dream too. It's easier.
I thought it was unloving that he's like not letting him do that. I'm like, oh, geez, somebody was arousing me from my sweet sleep. I don't know, I'd be that happy about it and not allowed to, right? So I just couldn't. I think I didn't take a good stance on it from just that point of my own injuries, right? My own feelings. Yeah. Sorry, Mila. Yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts were that the children of the night versus the one that are awake is about those who are still learning truth. That darkness is a metaphor for lack of knowledge and the need to rest and integrate the material. But that I also was thinking about how if I'm not feeling very confident, then I would imagine and dream possibilities. But if somebody come and wakes me up and say, come on, let's go, you've got this, let's go do this thing. So it's kind of like somebody that believes in me or have confidence in me and then say, come on, you don't have to just think about it, come step up and do it. Then that would give me confidence to, if somebody's saying, I've got what it takes, come on, let's do this thing, then I would get out of the imagination and actually step up and do it. So I had two different thoughts about it. That maybe it's not necessarily actual sleep as much as a condition of knowledge, but as in not intellectual knowledge, but heart-based knowledge. Those were my thoughts.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. That it's very enlightening. I quite enjoyed that actually. That I feel like you got it. You guys, you're nailing it. I really feel like that is it. Anyone else, or good to move on? Oh, Lisa?
In the next paragraph, it says, when he is woken up, like, come on, you're of the day. It's time to take action. He says, oh, I'm entirely in your hands. I'm so overwhelmed by the revelations that crowd around me that I am incapable of anything but bewilderment. So Aphraar was in a state of like trying to integrate, it felt like. And so I actually had some emotions of like, when it said, we who are of the day must be up and doing, I was kind of like, what? This feels aggressive or something. It just feels,
Bossy.
yeah, bossy, like pushy, like Aphraar's just overwhelmed in bewilderment of trying to integrate all that he's blissfully taking in and trying to understand and grasp in a new level in his soul, you know? So I don't know. I have a lot of, feeling like of being rushed or something, pushed by that statement.
Well, Mary and Jesus have in different times spoken about the fact that being overwhelmed is going to be your new normal. You're always constantly going to be overwhelmed by the next thing and the next thing and the next thing to stretch your soul, so that we're always going to be in a state of bewilderment all the time.
Right. So in other words, what Rael was trying to encourage Aphraar is like, up and get at action. That's
Yep.
what's gonna, like, he knew it was the right timing because he's one of these birthing ministers in this process, watching very closely for signs of Aphraar's readiness to go through the second birth. Yeah. So I guess he knew that him lying around and being overwhelmed and bewildered wasn't the course of action in that moment that was best for his soul, perhaps.
Well, it's now making me wonder if maybe we will have, maybe with time, maybe we do have a sensory system that can help us integrate as we go quickly, that maybe there's something our soul already has that will awaken, and a sensory organ of some kind, so that we don't have to, like, for me, I need to like sit and work it out. But maybe with time, something will awaken in my soul that has that capacity to just be at it. Curious.
But sorry. So my question still is, why does it say we who are of the day must? It's not just can, but it's must be up and doing. Why must? There's a dictate in that. There's a
Is it
certain like
because we
this.
need to act on what God is desiring us to do? Because the enlightenment is about you acting on what God wants as God feels it.
Mm-hmm.
Step up and do it. So that could be, and then you just do it too. You don't even know why you feel that urge, but you know you got to step up and just act, and then the understanding will come later.
Yeah, through the action. Okay.
Right. Because if you're not doing, then you may move into more stagnation.
Ah, maybe that's what it is in me. Is
Um,
I'm resistive to taking action because of fear, probably. You know. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's so-
Alicia.
I think it's, I pretty much feel like you said it, but I felt like the bewilderment, it's like Rael knows that in order to really fully understand what you're bewildered about, if you take action, you'll get it. Get it through the experience of that. Be bewildered.
I love it.
Experience.
That feels right.
Got it. We summarized and got a tagline at the end of it.
Bing.
That was it. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my gosh, are we recording this? Oh yes, okay.
And
I need to go back and hear this.
I think, well, for me personally, I know that, gosh, I really need to listen to this, like, and take action on it, because otherwise I'm gonna stagnate, and I know I'm busy. So it's like, yeah, come on, step up. You might
life of passion. Yeah, it becomes a life of passion, right? As we progress, we're just passionately at it. It's not like one of those Zen Buddhists, you just calm. That's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is passionate life. What an idea.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you.
Next question.
One, yeah. So, and next it's going to page 135, where Aphraar and Rael are instantly moved to a different location, and Aphraar notices that there's a difference. Something has changed in this transition for himself. And so he's looking for an explanation from Rael. And Rael says, let me begin by asking you to remember that in his incarnate state, the intelligence of a man is confined to a knowledge of only 3 dimensions in space: length, breadth, and height. Within the circumscribed limitations, the whole citadel of science has laid its foundations, and however trained or cultured the scientist may be, he knows nothing, okay, that lies beyond the gamut of the 5 senses, while as to the why and the how of the senses themselves, he is as ignorant as the child unborn. And so I'm not sure what it meant by as to the why as to like the limitation perhaps of the senses, and the how of the senses themselves. And do you feel that we can cultivate an understanding during your physical life on earth beyond the 5 senses? And now I feel like, yes, you can. But at the time when I was reading this, I don't know why I was blocked from it, and how you would nurture this, or how are you nurturing this in your life, and why is that important to you? Alicia?
I feel like the why and how is they're helping our senses, as much as we use them, are helping us to know God through everything that God's created, and how to know about ourselves during this time by using our senses. And of course, for example, so I can hear, but a musician learns to hear even more than I can hear, or someone who's a healer can feel, but they can feel even more, etc. So I feel like, yes, of course we can expand upon those for just the physical senses, for sure. And this is another thing that's encouraging me to think, well, how can I do that then? How can I do that more for myself? I feel like I do in some simple ways, but I feel like, oh yeah, that's something to really grow within ourselves.
Right. Thank you. Michaela?
I felt that it was referring to the difference between recognizing that you have a soul and being soul-focused, or just being in the physical world and just focusing on your physical experience and your physical senses. And that it's, in terms of having ignorant as the child unborn, most people live in their physical reality, and that's it. Or there's only a little variant, and that's what they're referring to, is that we don't recognize the power that the soul has on our existence, including our physical existence. And in terms of developing it, I think, the choice that we've all made to listen to Jesus and Mary and read these books and read the pageant messages and engage in nature and try to understand what our passion is and our desire is, I think all of that is about developing those senses beyond the physical.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you, Michaela.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Michael. You made it.
Yes.
We're on question 2, page 135. Anyone else on that? So I thought it also meant that beyond the 5 senses, like your 6th sense, and like sensing spirit in the physical world, and those senses as well to be developed, because that just opens up a whole new world for us and during our physical life, and a lot more learning for sure, I feel, on that. So I was thinking that maybe that's what it was meant, but I like the idea of that, like Michaela said, with the soul, that the recognition that the soul is what is affecting our physical more than anything else. So thank you for that. Mila?
Well, I was wondering if the senses, if we develop more senses as we progress, that the other senses become, like, we may not even need to develop the senses, but just as we progress, we just become more sensitive, and therefore the other senses just becomes awakened. So that could be what it's about, because I was thinking about your question about can we still do this while we're on earth, and I'm thinking, well, Jesus in the first century was at one man, so like how many sensory systems did he have, which were all right? Like what could he do? And the other thought I had about it was that the senses, the other senses we're going to develop, could be based on our uniqueness, on our unique nature and our unique gifts. And based on that, those particular sensory system will be the one awakened, or maybe you don't have all senses, but the one that are more specific to your gifts and abilities. And then based on your desire to activate them, then those will start to get. Like sometimes when I have certain desires of, I wish to become more sensitive or aware about a certain awareness or knowledge, then I will feel as if some kind of lesson plans get created, and then all this law of attraction event will start happening around me to trigger that particular ability or sensitivity that I have. So I've had those experiences a few times, and they're usually unpleasant law of attraction experiences, but it gets things going. So those were my thoughts about it. But considering that our standing point is supposed to be the sixth sphere, I mean, has got to be some incredible sensory systems we have at that level that has now got numbed out because we are desensitized, we're numbed out. And then the why, I'm trying to figure out the chapter as myself. The why, I was thinking that we are conditioned by our environment to be world-focused, because then we will meet other people's addictions. Maybe that's why we're numbed out to being sensitive to our soul. Just ideas shooting out of my head.
Yes. And you mentioned that like when we're born, we are coming from the sixth sphere. So I don't know, by the time you're actually, well, that's conception, but by the time you're actually born, we might not be quite there, depending on our parents. But I haven't been around babies for a while, and I was looking after a 3-month-old for a little while recently, and you really, really notice that how sensitive this child is to everyone around them, and anyone who was a little stressed out, or how he responded to everything around him, the animals, like the dogs that were there. And it was just, I was in awe of it. Like I was just in awe of this little baby, like he's amazing. But yeah, a lot of us don't realize that children really are so much closer to God at that stage of life than we are. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else on that one? Move along. So still on page 135, where Rael continues to explain the changes Aphraar is experiencing. And in this paragraph is where I was rather lost with the true meaning here. So I'm curious as to what your thoughts on feelings on are. So Rael says, man in physical knows nothing, and one of the greatest and most profound problems he has yet to solve is himself. If therefore the casket, which is said to contain the gem, defies all attempts to open it, what value is to be attached to the opinions, speculations, declarations, and scientific conclusions of the self-constituted authorities who claim competence to value the jewel itself? I'm not really sure what the jewel is. What does that mean to you and your understanding of it, of this statement? Kayla?
I really liked this sentence. For some reason, it really got me when I read it. But I feel like, again, it's talking about the soul. And, so many people have opinions and rules and guidance on earth, and they have no recognition that it's actually their soul that's driving them. So I feel like it's kind of saying, when these people talk, what is the value they're giving when they have no recognition that it's actually the soul that's the driving force? And the relationship to God as well, I feel that's the gem as well, is that soul is connecting to God.
So that's the jewel, is the soul.
Yeah, well, the soul at one moment, I really like the soul in at one moment with God. I feel like that is kind of the jewel. Yeah.
What is the casket part? Do you understand that?
Well, I think it's kind of like we live in, well, just that it's like opening up your awareness to realize that you're not just the physical body, you're the soul. And that's kind of the casket, is just that image of opening up to see that there's so much more in there than what you're perceiving in your physical reality.
Oh. Thank you, Michaela. Michael?
Hi. Oops.
Hi.
I agree. I think that the gem and the jewel is the soul, and that the casket is our bodies. I think in this, I think he referred to it earlier in one of the books as the body being the casket. And my understanding, I think he's referring to, I think he's taking a dig at like scientists but mostly ministers and maybe philosophers, people that purport to know about, the spiritual nature of man, and he's saying that they really don't. And so my understanding is that nearly everything we teach and have learned is wrong and can't be relied on.
Oh. Wow, thank you.
That's how I
Thank you,
think.
Michael. Yeah. Anyone else? That's interesting. I like that. I thought the casket would be the body, and I wasn't really, I didn't know if they were talking actually about the death of the body or yeah, I just kind of got lost in it, actually, that one. So thank you for that. Appreciate your insight. And so move on to the next question. And page 136. I could have asked many questions on every single page. I almost couldn't get off page 135 with questions. So I figured I had a few more to do. So I ended up going back to it and spreading it around a bit more. I just felt that this whole chapter was quite loaded with a lot of information, and I just had more questions than answers for myself. So, so in this paragraph, I feel maybe it was my own false beliefs that was triggering me in what was being said. As feeling like it was unloving, but the quote here was, the result has been that, misled by a lust of the senses, man has trampled the traditional if under his feet and has incurred the penalty, because thou hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return to the ground. Consistent with that, the ascent towards dominion has been toilsome, sorrowful, and an agony of disaster, contending and bloodshed. But God has been true to his dowry, and man has achieved wonders in the hazards he has made, the advantage falling without respect of persons alike upon the evil and the good. How did you feel about that? For me, I felt I had emotions going back to God being a punishing God, and that this was punishment, and that it's, and I'm looking at it going like, where's the love here in this? But then I feel like perhaps this is just my own religious upbringing, that to see God as someone to a being to fear, and that would punish you if you did anything wrong. So does anyone have any opinion on that? Is that it not being punishing? That this is loving?
What would have felt as not punishing for you, Virginia, in that context? If God wasn't a punishing God, what would have God done instead in that situation?
I'm not sure even. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry, I can't even answer that.
No,
right
just
now.
something to
Not
think
really
about.
sure. Yeah, something to
Yeah.
think about for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember who was first here. Alicia?
Well, I'm actually interested to know, because I haven't got a religious background. It's interesting to me to know what were you actually told, and how that came about for you, that this is so emotional for you. I personally don't have a lot of feeling about it. I feel it's loving, but that's obviously because we're aware of certain things. But I can see how someone would see that as very punishing and damning, berating, etc. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about, from your background. Is it a Catholic background? Or
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm just curious about that myself.
Yes. Well, with the Catholic Church, you go to confession and you confess all your sins and you do a penance, but you're also taught that there could be more punishment, right? If you're not having a good life, then you've brought that on yourself, like that that you must not be a good person, like that God is punishing, and that like he's a vengeful God is what I heard that many times.
And what you taught about the tree? What is the tree from your perspective, from your religious background perspective?
The tree that they were to not eat the fruit of, the tree of knowledge. And
so more,
and then I'm thinking, well, God is a loving God, creator. So why would that tree be there in the first place? Why would something be there? I know we have free will and have choice. And so you have this Garden of Eden. So this is from my take on that. But yet you have this one thing that you're not allowed to touch. If something I'm not supposed to do, I'm curious as to why I'm not supposed to do it, and what is it? What's going to happen? That kind of thing. That would have been like a childlike curiosity in learning. So, to be condemned until you return to the ground, so that's your whole life will be that way. Just feels, and it feels extreme to me.
I don't know. In this paragraph, I felt, I mean, I don't know it from a religious perspective, but I felt like the tree was, like Michaela was saying about it's more the intellectual, the mind way, and the reliance on yourself rather than relying on God and being more self-responsible.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to hear how it is for you. Thank you.
So, Virginia, the feeling you have is the feeling of being blamed. That's the feeling I'm noticing. Is like, why did you create temptation? And then I, being childlike, wanting to learn and curiosity, will then go explore this temptation, only to be blamed and punished forever for it. That doesn't sound fair. So I think that's the feeling that's coming up in you. And if you can let yourself process that emotionally, and get rid of it, then you'll be able to.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. You got that. Thank you.
It's actually everything you just said. So
It is. And this is the kind of wording that I was, you know, that I heard, that I saw when I was growing up, like in the church, and until I decided to not be part of it anymore when I left home and didn't, because I didn't like that part of it, that it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah. From what I've learned is that the gift of free will, God giving us the gift of free will. Now the gift comes with the responsibility of learning to use it appropriately. So, and therefore the consequences we're earning is about learning the responsibility of having the gift of free will. That was from assistance group. Oh my God, the 1.2. Intellectually, that's what I heard. It was like, we have the gift of free will, because I've had many tantrums about dyslegia, and at some point I'll sink in going, oh, it's about the gift of free will and how to be responsible, and part of responsibility is the consequence. But then I'm wondering if in our childhood we had a different parenting style when we were experimenting and learning and dealing with temptation. If we were allowed to experience the consequence when things were still on a small scale, maybe we would have learned quicker and the damage was smaller. It's like you boink a kid in a kindergarten and you're allowed to experience your process about what that felt like and going to repentance. And very quickly you learn, like, that didn't feel good to me. Instead of being blamed and punished for it, I was encouraged to experience the consequence and the causes. And so maybe things were meant to be small scale, like, yeah. So maybe in that perspective, the lessons, the process is very loving and very mild, but we're so numbed out that we take some big disasters before we go, is something wrong? Am I missing something? Which has been my case. Yeah.
Yes.
I always think about how they always have these stories about how if a child smacked another child and the child start to cry, eventually the other child will also start crying. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, because he's now processing, well, the first child that got smacked started to forgive, and then conscience woke up in the other child. The child also started to cry and release the repentance. And then they kind of go, yeah, I don't want to go through that again. So no more hitting. Like that story always comes, that analogy always comes back to me over and over. That if you allow both children to process their experiences, the child they hit will also cry in grief. And they'll resolve it. It'll be figured out.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Michael?
Something that goes along with, I think what you were saying about children, without summarizing the whole thing, but children have sensitive skin, and skin is like love and emotion and feelings. And so our skin reacts quickly. I mean, children would react really quickly to unloving things. Maybe they're just formed to, and then recover from it quickly. And as far as the tree, I'm thinking, for me, when I saw the tree, I think of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so when we taste of the fruit, we're actually doing something evil. So then we act it, we now have knowledge of what evil is, or the knowledge of what is good. So I think he's saying, don't exercise your will to be sinful or to do evil things. That would be tasting the fruit.
Oh, okay. Part of it, though, I guess when you're saying the blamed part that I'm feeling and the temptation, it is also that I inherited this. We all did. We inherited some of this, because none of us are born and able to just like not eat or to not have to toil to have food and to provide for ourselves. You know what I mean? So that part feels unjust to me as well, that it goes on and on and on. It's been going on for so long. And so I guess that's another thing that I have to feel about, the injustice of inheriting this.
Absolutely. These are the tantrums that are absolutely worth connecting to and feeling.
Yeah, Adam and Eve, what were you thinking?
I remember Mary saying that in one part, though, in one of the assistance group. Are you sure you wouldn't have done that anyway? Like, don't point a finger to them. Are you sure somebody
I think that
along wouldn't have?
Yeah, and then I think of Michael's description, and then I'm seeing that in many ways, even small ways, I could be doing this every day and choosing what is unloving over what is loving. So I'm continuing to add to that pile. Like, so I'm not blameless in it.
I have found
there's choice that continues, right? We continue to choose that.
I have processed quite a lot of emotion of how unfair it is that I've inherited stuff and I never had a choice. It was always stacked against me right from the get-go. What do you think was going to happen? I've had a lot of those tantrums, and it's really helped to go into it and just release it, because it's made space for me to then go, okay, fine, what's the work? Let's go. Let's begin. And then I start to receive God's truth. And then there's other processes I'm feeling right now. The one that the tantrum I'm having is that I try to intellectually overcome is that I'm really upset that it takes feeling emotional pain in order to heal myself. I still haven't finished processing that very basic emotion, which is that, you mean I'm gonna have to feel this pain? It's gonna be about feeling pain as the only way I'm gonna get through this. I have not emotionally released that tantrum. Oopsie, and I kept having patients having the same tantrum over and over before I go, hey, is that mine? Am I feeling like that? Yes, I am. So I thought I could intellectually browbeat myself into having wisdom about it without processing the tantrum about it. So it's good. Tantrums are good.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Mila. Anyone else? Good to move on to the next one.
Michael raised his hand. Do you want to take it? Or
sorry, looking down. Sorry, Michael.
That's fine. I was ready to move, willing to move on. But my thought about it is, I know what you want. What we want is, how do we feel about these descriptions? But coming to it intellectually, I guess, I think if this is God saying it, it has to be loving, and it's man interpreting God. So man is putting the words in God's mouth that you are cursed. So this is from man's point of view, and I see it as mankind having to work at a lower level of law, like physically toil the soil instead of using his soul or her soul to raise things and have harmony, and for the soul to govern the growth of the garden. And then our own law of compensation acting out on, as far as like the pests and the poor harvests and the weather and all these things that work against fertility and prosperity. And it's our sin again acting on this, what the earth that supports us, that looks like a curse. That's how I looked into it.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I can actually feel myself like softening up a little bit to this. Just listening to you guys and your perspective, because I know I need to let go of what I learned a long time ago that was like browbeaten into me so long ago, and not be harsh with myself about it, but just hearing how you feel about it, I can actually feel myself softening up to it and to God, that I want to believe that our creator, that she is a loving God. I really, I do. And I still have some work to do on this. So thank you, everyone. We'll go on to the next one. Okay. Page 139. Uriel is explaining to Aphraar that he is now able to cross the bridge. Aphraar is a bit doubtful and does not really understand. He's still hesitating on it. And Uriel says, we bear the outline of the image of God in our creation. The design is filled in and the finishing details added as we choose to devote ourselves to the endeavor. In our ascent from stage to stage in the hierarchy of heaven until we see him as he is. In the step you are now about to take, you will pass the limitations of time and distance, both of which will henceforth be appreciable to you. 1,000 years will be to you as a day, and a day as 1,000 years. As regards to capacity for the accomplishment and experience of whatever you may be engaged in. Wow, I'm still in awe of reading that, reading that again. How do you feel about even the word hierarchy being used here, that there's a hierarchy in the spiritual state? And how do you feel about the transcendence of time and fully engaging and experiencing without this element? Do you think we could do that here on Earth? Do you ever get to do that? Do you feel that you actually get to experience that? I feel like I do sometimes. When I'm really into my desires and I'm actually acting on them, then time doesn't really factor in so much. I'm not looking at the clock, and time just it exists. I just feel like I exist in a different way when I'm doing that, and I look forward to when I can be doing that all the time. I keep doing that all the time and not having to watch the clock so much, because even within that, I still have to do it. I still have to look at the clock and make sure I don't go over my time and so on. So any comments on that? Feelings on it? Michaela?
I find that in terms of the hierarchy of heaven, to me, that just makes sense, that because it's just really about our soul and firstly removing the damage and then just expanding it. So we're going to have a different level of ability just based on that. So that to me is kind of what they're referring to in terms of hierarchy. And in terms of time, I feel like I was just this morning, my kids aren't here and it's been ages since they haven't been here. And I had the thought of this chapter and I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could somehow stop time right now so that I have more time than just the few hours that I've got? And that's not what happened. But I think one thing I'm noticing, particularly with so much going on in the world and different liberties being taken away, and it's sort of dawning on me that there are a number of people that I might never see in the physical again. And as I'm expanding my perception and trying to sort of encompass the truth around my soul, there's a sense of realizing that I will see them again and I will have a relationship with them again if I choose to. And so in that way, time doesn't limit my experiences. It just might not be right now that I can have those experiences that I want. Yeah.
Thank you, Michaela. Alicia?
Yeah, I feel like the hierarchy, as Michaela said, it's just what we know is reality, of us expanding in love. And I think we just have these leftover beliefs of hierarchy from inferiority and superiority because of the world with the systems we live in and our parents' system, etc. So I think that's just a bit of a leftover stuff that we have trouble with that word, because I would have had trouble with that word in the past. But it just feels like it's about expanding. And the transcendence of time. I actually agree with you, Virginia. When you're really into something, it's like time just flies. And when you're really not into something, it seems to take forever. So that's a good message for us, I guess. And I guess in the sleep state, I don't know how time is there, but I feel like time is much more expansive or not so existing when I'm in the sleep state. And I've had little circumstances in working energetically with people, as you do, that I may do something at a certain time, but they may receive it at a different time, depending on their desire.
Cool. Yeah.
If that makes sense. So yeah, I think we can use it on Earth. But it's like, I feel like a little peanut in this, that I hardly know anything, but but it's exciting to think, gosh, yeah, how can we expand time in certain ways or reduce time in other ways?
It feels good. That space feels good. Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. Michael?
Okay. I think of the hierarchy as the planes and spheres that we have to go through, although Aphraar experiences it differently than I picture it, because his drawing of heaven is different from the orderly spheres that I imagine from Paget, and like an onion, although I know it's not an onion because Jesus says that there's interstellar space between the different areas. So I think of the hierarchy as just, the area where people that are alike are, and it's common features of each one, and it's about growth. And about the time, I'm trying to find the words for a feeling. And do you remember Jesus talking about, I think he was quoting Isaiah and talking about rolling up the scroll and giving man an idea of eternity so that he can have some sort of feeling about the bigness of God, or there's some reference that he's made, I think, in an assistance group, about that we have a sense of time, of the eternal or the timelessness that helps us see beyond this life and to feel like it's possible to expand. I'm just interpreting that, but he says it really well.
Oh.
So there's some, I think, we're in jail. This is Earth. We have time. We have 24-hour jail bars, but we have a soul that, like this, the lady Visvisvi.
I don't know.
The first fruits of Aphraar's writing that was going into the spirit world, right? She was going in the sleep state because she had found it's coming up. So she was aware of having to go back and forth in the sleep state. And so in the sleep state, she was aware that she had to go back to the earth. So I think it's just an aid, like that we have a sense or a foreboding or a smell of something more that makes us curious and wants to lean that way.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh. Thank you, Michael. Mila?
whenever I imagine that I'm going to exist forever and ever and ever, I go into panic attack. I just start to like, oh my God, I'm going to live forever. Oh my God, like how? Oh, there is no end to this. So it only makes sense that God has created a stage where that whole thing is removed from you. The concept of time just doesn't exist because, I will go insane. So it does make sense. I can't comprehend what that feels like right now. I think literally something is just removed from you maybe, but the concept of time is removed from you. And then the fact that you're going to exist forever does not bother you anymore. Those are my thoughts about it. So I'm really excited that that's the process that is being removed from Aphraar, or has already been removed based on the chapter that he's already. So then I'm going, wait a minute, is that what Seven Sphere is about? That's the transition of having that earth piece removed from you, where you no longer have a concept of time because each sphere has something that's corrected. So is that the understanding he's now experienced, which is, or received, that is, there is no space or time for him anymore? Like, so I just started to like, wait a minute, is that what's going on? Someday I'm gonna have to go back through all of these chapters again.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah, I just, to me, I like the idea that when I'm into something and I want to learn more and I want to expand in it, if there was no time, I could just stay at it until I learned it, right?
Ooh.
I don't have to, oh, another appointment. Oh, I have to go teach this class. Like, like what I mean? Like I'm constantly by the clock, and I feel the exhaustion of it sometimes, of having to live by that. And so that is something that when I read, I'm just like, oh, so want to experience that more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I went backwards. I wonder if we get, as we get more in our souls and more impassioned, we'll be wishing for more time to do all the things that we want, and then finally one day these blinders, that this governor on our lives will be removed, and it'll be like an answer to a prayer, that we'll be able to give all of our time and all of our effort to these things that we're passionate about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you, Michael. Michaela?
Just listening to you then, Virginia, talk about how you're doing something passionate and then it's time to go. I noticed for me that this sometimes this irritation around time is really a desire in me to not take responsibility for my children, really is my primary thing at the moment, that irritation that I've got to deal with them at this time or whatever, when really I think if I was more in a space of love with them, it wouldn't be this burden that, oh, I've got to go because it's time to get them, and I think that would change our perception of time as well.
Responsibility. It's cool. Thank you, Michaela. Yeah. Anyone else on that? Oh, Alicia.
Well, and it's reminding me of Jesus's talk about treasuring time and being very specific about looking at how many hours we spend doing different things.
Oh, what is your treasure? I remember, yeah, see that one again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like being aware of creating a life where we're less constrained by time, for sure, and being able to know and follow our passions. But there's also a part that how am I actually using this commodity that's only really in its form here on earth. It's not so, like all the spirits that Jesus and Mary talk to, they always say, well, in earth time years, in earth time. So it's obviously very different there, even before you get to the gate.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Alicia. Michael?
Yeah, I agree with you, Alicia. It's time on the earth is a resource and a teaching tool, something that's precious, and it gives urgency So if I had a sense that I had all the time in the world to progress, or that I had all eternity to progress, I probably wouldn't even get started. I'd be doing 1,000 things and not get there. But if when I guess I have the wrong. I'm revealing a poor motivation. If I feel like I'm running out of time, I might get around to doing something. So I think I'm thinking of it as an aid for being on the planet.
I like that. Thank you, because lately I've been seeing it as a limitation, an inconvenience. So there's more beyond what I'm seeing right now. So thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Lisa?
I noticed that I feel a lot of pull to do what everybody on Earth's doing in a time-bound sense. Like I'm constantly catching myself, judging myself for taking time to just be with my soul and feel my emotions. And I'm feeling the dichotomy of what I'm doing versus what the world's doing, and also these internal judgmental voices that I hold of, you should be working really hard, you should be doing this, that, and the other. And then I remind myself, well, wait, Jesus said he spent 6 hours a day crying about yada, yada, yada issues. He obviously valued his soul. So for me, time pull comes in terms of this fear of conforming, being different and separate from the earth and what the general earth, like I notice Mondays, I feel more tense and rushed as opposed to Saturdays and Sundays when everybody else is taking a breath and stretching out. I'm quite influenced and impacted by other people's belief structures and wanting to fit in, I guess, still. So that time is all intertwined with that for me.
Acceptance. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I have been accused, well, like if I'm emotionally working through something that, you're still doing that kind of thing. And, God loves you, and you're here to use this life to enjoy it and not be, wallowing in stuff or going back to these things that happened in your childhood. And why do that? Then that, like, it's a waste of my time. And it didn't feel good hearing that stuff. And then I kind of go, yeah, I guess maybe I need more enjoyment or like to balance things out a little bit more. But I still believe that I need to do this. I need to do this work. So it's just someone else's perspective on how my time should be being used. Anyway, Michaela?
I think if you consider, like, something that Aphraar said again in this chapter is that the whole point of this physical existence is to learn about love, then it's possible that this time concept that's been developed is part of the process of numbing us and disconnecting us from that purpose. So, so we're busy and we're focused on the physical. We're really focused on the physical when we're focusing on time.
Yes. Yeah. We are.
So Alicia had just shared a link for a talk by Jesus. The topic is desire for personal change. So for the viewers in the future, if they want to look up that topic. Sorry, Alicia, can you?
It's the one that talks about treasuring time.
Yeah, thank you. All right, should we move on to the final question?
Did we just do that one?
Oh, that was it. Oh, wow. Okay, yes, that was final question. Sorry, I had in my head there was one more question.
Aphraar time.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Oh,
Lisa?
I just had a thought also of another talk that popped to my mind, which is Jesus and Mary. Mary channels a group of, I think it's Vietnamese women spirits who spent their entire lives in servitude to the men, basically working so hard, working themselves to the bone, while the men basically commanded them, is what it sounded like. But they were very sincere in coming and asking Jesus, what is the meaning of our life? Like, and then they showed them their guides, and their guides showed them enjoyment, like singing and dancing and expressing themselves. And they're like, this was supposed to be our lives? Like our lives were completely different than that. So it just is kind of a good reminder. I now want to go back and listen to that one again, because what the earth is valuing, or what most people in the world value, compared to what, say, how Jesus and Mary are spending their time and their efforts in a very different way. Yeah. Anyway, so that one, I could try to find that link, but it's under the channelings. It's a group of, I think, Vietnamese women ask about the meaning of life is the title of it. It's a beautiful channeling.
Yeah, it's pretty confronting. Yeah, I had a lot of emotions triggered about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're done with this chapter discussion today, and I'll stop the recording.